Mark chapter 3,
Progress.
verses 31 through 35. Then his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside, they sent to him and called him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, "Your mothers and your brothers are outside asking for you." And Jesus replied, "Who are my mother and my brothers?" And looking at those who sat around him, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Today we gather to explore this radical concept here on the last Sunday of Easter. This radical teaching found within the message of Jesus, a narrative where societal norms are challenged and familial boundaries are redrawn. In Mark chapter 3, we encounter Jesus as a disruptive figure, shaking the foundations of tradition and culture. His ministry, which was marked by acts of healing, exorcism, and radical acceptance, stood in stark contrast to the expectations of his earthly family. Quite frankly, the guy was just weird. Mark's Jesus has these humble beginnings in a small, boring town that no one cares about. He is conceived by an unwed teenager. He is a faithful Jew, but he is confusing all the rules, at least they think he is. He is a teacher, but he loves all the wrong people. He holds a wealth of wisdom, but he grew up in poverty. He is a man and yet challenges systems of power and gender norms of the day. He is nurturing and soft and kind. He is a healer, a revolutionary who comes to upend evil and whose very body causes uprising as folks are forced, as they encounter him, to unlearn and confront oppressive ideas. And at the heart of this disruption lies this profound disconnection that begins to arise between Jesus and his family. Earlier in the passage, if we had read some verses before, we would have witnessed this moment of tension as his own kin, perhaps perplexed or even scandalized by his unconventional teachings and actions, actually go out and try to restrain him. The implication is stark. They even say he is out of his mind, his family says. They view him as someone who has lost touch with reality, someone who needs to be contained and controlled. And the gravity of this moment cannot be overstated. It underscores the true radical nature of Jesus' mission and the profound misunderstandings it creates, even amongst those who were closest to him, even those who raised him, those who love him. It's too much for them at times. And the word restrain used here also is curious and carries significant weight. The verb is the same word that is also used to describe Jesus' arrest and Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist. This suggests not just a desire to control Jesus' behavior in this one moment, but a deep-seated resistance to his message and mission. They are attempting to reel him in. Their last attempt at making Jesus the brother and son that they had always hoped that he would be. Jesus' family, rooted in tradition and societal expectation, struggles to reconcile their understanding of familial duty with the disruptive nature of Jesus' ministry. And of course, they love him, but I appreciate that the text is honest with the fact that they struggled. The truth is, if I could have talked to them, I would have said Jesus was never going to fit in. He was at odds with the authorities, and he wasn't going to fit into a traditional family model at home. Perhaps their expectations for him were to stay within the bounds of respectability, stay close to the neighborhood where we can see you, where we can check in on you, where we know who your people are. Maybe their expectations were for him to stay quiet and predictable, not rock the boat too much, not draw too much attention to the family's reputation as a whole. Mary's like, I've already got so many people on my back, and you're going to bring more attention? You're going to bring more shame to our name? Don't bring so much attention to our family anymore. Be a man in the ways that we want you to be a man, a son, a brother. Don't embarrass us, they might have said. But we know that to compromise his identity and mission would have betrayed the very essence of who Jesus was born to be and the work of the Spirit in his life. His family loves him, and they don't get it. In this passage, we see Jesus sort of responding to these ruptures in family life by keeping to his mission. At all times, he draws in people from the outside. Even when his own family doesn't get it, he's always surrounded. Outcast and oppressed people find him irresistible. People watching him get free simply because he is free to live into the true calling of who he is and who he is meant to be. People get free just watching him move. Unfortunately, he doesn't always bring his own family along. In verse 31, Jesus, as Matt Skinner says, begins redrawing the lines of family and belonging. In the midst of all of this drama, his family comes looking for him, and he responds, "Who are my mother and my brothers? Whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother." I could not have ever gotten away with saying something like that. And here Jesus is. Who are my mother and brothers? Well, Jesus loved and valued his family. We know that. He also understood that part of his mission was always about expanding the boundaries of belonging and acceptance. He was shifting people's allegiances and their hopes for what was possible. For Jesus, he considered himself kin with anyone who desired a relationship with God, anyone who was willing to share a meal with the poor, anyone who desired to live a simple and unhurried life, anyone who desired to live a life of prayer and wisdom, anyone who was willing to give up their status and privilege for the sake of the powerless, anyone who was willing to lose everything for the sake of the gospel, anyone who was willing to confront the powers that be. If you do the will of God, you are my family. This was a revolutionary concept in a culture where family of origin meant everything. It meant everything from wealth to respect to responsibility to status to protection and identity. It meant things about inheritance. It meant things about what your family would have access to. And yet here Jesus is reordering even family relations to be less about biology and more about alignment and shared values. In this way, Jesus is one of the first to popularize chosen family. The term chosen family originated in the LGBTQ community. Other terms used are family of choice, found family, kin. It is unknown exactly who coined the phrase, but generally refers to any non-biological kinship bonds, whether legally recognized or not. LGBTQ individuals in particular often seek out these families of choice when they are ostracized by their families of origin, which leaves them in need of social support. Many individuals face rejection or shame from families, churches, places they were raised in. Maybe they don't feel comfortable opening up, maybe they feel misunderstood, or they simply are hated and rejected. According to research from the Trevor Project, only 37% of LGBT youth feel like their home is an affirming space. And then among transgender and non-binary youth, less than 1 in 3 people believe their home is gender affirming. And as I'm sure you can imagine, this takes its toll on mental health, which is where chosen families come in. The term chosen family is not necessarily used, but is certainly lived out also in communities of color who may have historically experienced family separation or rupture, whether interpersonally or politically. The idea of embracing your family's friends and neighbors as aunts and cousins is just one example of that. The truth is that being related to someone doesn't necessarily mean agreement or care. Yet chosen families are exactly that. They are the people you choose, the members, the structures, the expectations of the relationship are entirely up to the people in the relationship. At the very least, chosen families are the ones who see you, who understand you, who lift you up, who challenge you, and celebrate you. And you do the same for them. Chosen families are established to provide ongoing mutual love and support. They are about shared values, shared identities, shared mission. Similarly, for Jesus, family, for him, is not about blood or surnames, but about shared commitment. He says, whoever does the will of God is my family. In fact, Jesus is clear throughout the gospel, sometimes even offending us with how blunt he is about familial bonds not being as important as the work he wants to do in our lives, if for some reason the two conflict. He recognizes that at times his presence in our lives will not bring peace, but a sword, sometimes turning relationships upside down. And yet there is hope for those relationships that cannot be healed in this lifetime. Jesus draws and redraws the family lines again and again and again, as many times as we need them to be redrawn. And so during these days of celebrating families, I think it's important to recognize the power also of the families that we make and choose. As RuPaul, one of the most famous drag queens in the world, often says, as queer people, we get to choose our families. And the reality is that we all get to choose our families, especially as Christians. One of the great gifts of our faith is that while it causes us to honor our families and our parents, it also offers us this way to participate in spiritual family, even when our biological families are no longer with us or the relationships are strained or unhealthy. As the tradition says, when each of us are baptized, we are baptized not just into a church or to a denomination, but into the body of Christ. A body that is made up of many parts, for better or for worse. Baptism is this practice that says often before we are even aware of it, we are said to be adopted by God into the family of Christ. which is made up of every Christian that ever existed in time, for better or for worse. The family of Christ is made up with those that we have seen with our eyes and those we have never seen before, those who are with us now and those saints that have gone before us in death. The family of Christ transcends race, culture, nationality, age, gender, sexual orientation, and every little bit of human difference. The thing that binds us together is our commitment to Christ and the common baptism that we all share, the bread that we all have broken, the juice or wine that we have all taken part in. We are each bound together in faith and called to share in a common life, especially to care for our most vulnerable members. I am so grateful to have a family that loves and supports me. I have always felt loved every day of my life, and I know that that's not true for every person in the world. And then on top of that, the family I do have looks little like a traditional family. It's really made up of all the people who believe I am who I say I am, who show up for me and I show up for them. I grew up in two separate households, one with my mom and one with my dad. And then my dad remarried, and then my mother died. And I lost relationships along the way and gained some relationships along the way. And to tell you the truth, many people have mothered me throughout my life. And to tell you the truth, I have created new families in every season of life I've been in. I've just folded people in along the way, always folding more people into the inner courts of my life. Every season, every place I've lived in, family lines have been redrawn. My family, as I hope that yours too, is one that transcends blood and genetic makeup. It is made of love and friendships and marriage bonds, and most of all, choices that we make to be committed to one another, to stand together for one another, to have loving and caring relationships that both include and also transcend our bloodlines is a hope and a promise. This too is a part of the gospel. Let it be so. Amen. And now is your opportunity to share what's bubbling up in you and what might be sparking as thoughts for you. Yes, Theo.
What a surprise. I have thoughts about the chosen family sermon really early on. But I just wanted to talk about, related to this, something that has confused me and never stopped confusing me because, within like the queer community, and when you choose found family members who are friends, it's considered a little odd or a little uncommon, but there is an area where it's considered the standard and norm, and that is it's considered normal if we marry someone for them to be our family, and if we marry them, their in-laws become our family. And I just have never understood why, to some people, the only acceptable way to add people into families is romance. Because the truth is, like, you can love your friends just as deeply as any biological family, or even as much as your partners. For me, my friendships and romantic relationships, they're different from each other, but they're each just as important to me. And something I've experienced repeatedly with found family, because hi, I love my friends a lot. We break a lot of social norms together. One of my friends and I actually plan to, in our 30s, like raise a kid together, and we have no romantic interest in each other because they only like a woman, and I am not perceived by them as a woman, which is very great. But people will just assume that you must actually be secretly in love with some of your closest chosen family, and I just don't understand why that is considered like the exception to general society. Also, I just really appreciated the sermon in general.
Mm. Thank you so much, Theo. All good points. Yes.
Thank you, Brooke. It's so nice to hear you talk about how you're loved because you are such a lovable person.
Mm.
You feel like you are part of my family, and
Aw.
I felt that way the first couple times I talked to you. And
Mm.
yeah, you deserve to be loved. We all deserve to be loved.
Mm.
Um, Probably 35 years ago, my daughter Sue came to me right on Memorial Day when I was expecting a house full of company, and was busy cooking and cleaning, and she stopped by and she said, "Mom, I have something to tell you." And I said, "What?" And I was kind of busy doing something, and she came out and said, "I just wanted you to know that I was gay." And I thought to myself, immediately, it was not about her, it was about me. And that I've struggled with for many years, because I was unable to tell her that I loved her at that point, and it didn't make any difference. I didn't say anything else, but in my heart and my mind, I was thinking, how am I going to explain this to my family? How am I going to have all this company this weekend and pretend that there's nothing wrong if I don't share it? And if I do share it, how do I share it? And that occupied my mind all weekend long. And I have lived to regret that time that I was unable to tell her I loved her when I did love her,
Mm.
when I did care about her. And I'm sharing that today because I know that there are so many young people today who are estranged from their families, or have difficulty with their families and their acceptance. But I just want them to know that give them time, help to educate them, help try to have space for them even when you're hurt. And I see that today, and I just regret how I felt at that time, but I had many times to love my daughter since then, and I'm grateful that she didn't just walk away and just didn't not care about her family. She cared enough to stay and to hear us out, and most of us were very accepting, but some weren't in the beginning. It was difficult. But when she died, she knew she was loved and cared for.
Mm. Thank you very much, Judy, for sharing that.
I'm going to kind of go on what Theo kind of said with people rejecting found families and queer communities. When I got disowned by my dad, I had my mom's best friend and her husband step in as a parental because I like broke down. And that my dad chose not to come to my high school graduation, said he did not care, it was not worth watching me walk the stage. And those two people, my mom's best friend and her husband, showed up. And a lot of people said, why would you let them come and not your dad? Why are they your parental units and not your dad? Like, why are you replacing that? And it was a lot of rejection, and I think a lot of people don't accept found families instead of real families a lot.
Mm.
But I think they're important for people who have been rejected or dealing with stuff like that. And a lot of people told me it was not okay that I replaced him with those two people when they've been there for me more than my actual family. So I
Yeah.
think it's important to accept and love found family, like what
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Thank you for sharing that. It's true. I think as a society, we have to recognize that what family really is the people who are here that love you. Who's here that loves you is really the question that people need to know, that there's someone that loves them rather than it being a particular person. Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
There's a social media group that's probably, it is definitely regional, if you're on Facebook and you would want to check it out, it's called Stand in Pride and then Northeast. Um, and you can, there are people who are looking for found families. They're looking for support for singular events.
Hmm.
They're looking to have connections when they move to a different area. They're all over. I, at this point, have just been on there watching. I did try to connect Selena to somebody who was graduating from a college up in Maine
Mm.
that was looking for some people, but it was kind of a distance. But
Mm.
anyway, it could be a way to reach out and be supportive to the community.
Yeah, yeah, it's really
Stand in pride.
beautiful. Yeah, it's really beautiful to think, there's a group and technology allows us to make these asks and find people in new ways where it's like maybe you don't have anyone for graduation and you just want to know that someone's there. Or, any other big moment in your life. It's beautiful that we've been able to create these creative ways to reach out for found families. Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke, for discussing these three forms of families: the biological family, the family of choice, and the family of God.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me that there's never been a great deal of difficulty in seeing the biological family as part of the family of God, but it's been very difficult to see chosen families as being family, part of the family of God. And I think that that's what
Mm.
the calling of the church is in our day,
Mm-hmm.
particularly, is to demonstrate that chosen families are and can be part of the family of God,
Mm.
an important part of the family of God. So thank you very much for bringing all this out for us.
Thank you. That's very beautiful. Yeah, completely agree. And feel like, the church is, as you know, had to shift in every generation and every time. And this might be part of our calling now. To be a witness is to recognize all of the ways that families can be formed and to validate them, to invite them into our common life, to change how we ask questions, even. Who are your people? Who loves you? Who's here to support you? Things like that, to recognize that that could be so many different people. Hmm.
I have thoughts,
All right.
just a couple, but it's just thinking about like biological family and chosen family and how those two things kind of intersect. Because when I came out, I had to kind of pick and choose biological family based on how they reacted or how
Mm.
they related to me, and how complex that can be, and how kind of, I don't know. It's something I deal with every day, and it makes me really grateful for the chosen family who, especially my queer friends, especially people who are just going headfirst into accepting people who are different from them, how like effortless those relationships are,
Mm.
and how like those relationships make my life a lot easier and a lot more and so much better for my mental health,
Mm.
you know. Um, so it's got me thinking about the complexities, but
Mm-hmm.
also like the simplicities of just like finding someone who's just a real friend
Mm.
and like knows me better than a lot of my family members do.
Mm.
So it's thank you for this message. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you lifting up the complexity of it because, again, it's not a binary. It's not uh, my family accepts me or they don't. Sometimes we pick and choose, or there are certain ones that we resonate with. Maybe your parents and not your relatives, or Yeah, or yeah, they choose. They choose. But sometimes it depends. It depends on the person, depends on the relationship. It depends, on so many things. So it's not necessarily an all or nothing either. And then the aspects of forgiveness and how long do you wait for someone, all of those things are complex, but beautiful, and things that we can model as the church is how do we be in relationship differently than the world. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Heather.
Just going back more to the revolutionary point that Jesus was making, you touched on this, and I had listened to, my son Nathan had me, one time we were driving, and we were listening to somebody who was knowledgeable on the origins in the Middle East as far as tribal life thousands of years ago, and was really emphasizing what you were saying about all those points. That's what was so important, what was so significant. We don't relate much to that now, but that was huge for him to say that at that time, because that's all that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody functioned because of the biological family or tribe.
Right, right.
So that's when we talk about all of his revolutionary things that he did, that's very significant.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point. Being able to understand like history and culture, even us having this conversation is reflective of the culture that we live in that is very different. That this would have been extremely different and disorienting for people. We know that even later on, as Jesus is, being crucified, he makes a way for his mother to be prepared for, because he knows that when he goes, she's not going to have a way to live, to survive, because of the culture that they were in. And so he provides a way for her. He provides family for her because he was a male relative that wouldn't be there anymore. Yeah. So very important. This would not have been a conversation that we could have had 2,000 years ago.
And from their perspective, he had lost his mind.
All right, let's get you the mic.
I would say from their perspective, he had certainly lost his mind.
Oh, yes. Definitely. Yes. Any other comments? Yeah.
I think the message is just outreach. Like Jesus' message is just to like connect with everyday people. You know what I mean? So like whether it's your friends, family, whatever, just it's outreach. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Continuing to fold in more people, that is the message, the core message of the gospel, as we'll see next week at Pentecost. More people being folded into the community, and it continuing to go outward after that. And so that is what we are called to do. And so often, I also say that is the movement of Scripture as well, starting with a family that was meant to expand and expand and expand. And the same is true for us, I think. Yeah.
Hi, we have someone on Zoom. It's Kit. So
Aw.
I'm very excited. And he said, I think it's important to understand too that this chosen family includes people who are disadvantaged because they didn't have much biological family to care for them.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. Yeah, good point to remember. That a lot of this has to do with survival and access to resources and all of that. So I appreciate that being brought up as well. All right.
Oh, And then he went on to say the example of Mary Magdalene, known as a prostitute in the day, and Jesus said, "You're my family too."
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And those women that are noted in Jesus's lineage. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. As we celebrate families, let us continue to reflect on how we expand our families, how we welcome and fold more people in. Andrew will lead us